It's been really exciting to have the post of Principal Conductor with the Filarmonica Toscanini in Parma. I think that we've achieved lots together while I've been growing from being even younger than I am now, and them showing me the ropes and actually learning through working and how to find a relationship together in that important relationship and dynamic of a principal conductor and an orchestra, how you develop the orchestra, develop the repertoire, and how you move the orchestra forward, while also the conductor also is developing at the same time. And I think we had a good relationship to build each other up in our time together. Some of the most exciting things we did together must be the Brahms cycle of the 4 symphonies that were then broadcast on Classic FM. Also Bruckner symphonies, Shostakovich symphonies, Lutoslawski, and it's been really interesting to grow this side of things and have the audience going with us on this journey and appreciating the new direction and the fresh direction. Of course, every orchestra is very different, and every orchestra is an organism in itself. Working with the CBSO is particularly special for me, as it's the orchestra of my home city of Birmingham, and the orchestra that I grew up with. It's what I know an orchestra to be from a very young age, and also the orchestra that grew me up, with various teachers in the orchestra who taught me chamber music or cello, and also the orchestra helping me and growing me through the conducting fellowship and the assistant conductor, which would always make it a very special orchestra to return to, made even more special by the incredible hall that the orchestra plays in Symphony Hall. I had many influences in Birmingham, especially through growing up there. So from the Birmingham Music Service, which is one of the strongest in the country, and growing up through the music service, first starting with Veronica Raven, my first cello teacher there, who has since become an institution, I think, in the cello world of Birmingham. And then moving on to cello teachers who are also related to the CBSO, with Ulrich Heinen first, and then to Eduardo Vassallo. My first conducting teacher is the associate conductor of the CBSO, of course, Mike Seal, to who I owe a lot, because he really started me off on this journey. I was always playing in the youth orchestras, in CBSO Youth Orchestra, in ACO, in Academy Chamber Orchestra in Birmingham, and BSSO as well. And I always wanted to have a go conducting, and Mike started this conducting workshop as part of the CBSO Youth Orchestra, and that was just such a fantastic opportunity to get going and get hands-on with it all. And this was it's something that I'll never forget about Birmingham, the amount of opportunity that there is for young people and for young people in music. Even if you don't need to have money, you don't need to have any of this, you just have to be keen and interested. And I am very grateful to have been cultivated by the music system of Birmingham. I used to love playing the cello. In fact, I still miss playing the cello. I don't have a cello anymore. However, the most exciting part of my music making as a cellist was always with other people, doing things with others. So chamber music I used to really enjoy, but more than that was orchestral playing. And then as I played more and more in these orchestras, as a youngster, I started growing an obsession with the conductors at the front and thinking, what do they do, and wanting to have a go. I had some great advice back from conductors back then who started me off on the path, and then I started properly having lessons with Mike Seal, and then it all went from there. Just an obsession from being an orchestral musician on the front desk of a youth orchestra to then really having this desire to have a go myself. And it was something that was just like a bug. As soon as I started conducting, I just knew that was what I wanted to do. And many of my friends who were there the first time I conducted, who were playing in the orchestra, they commented the same way, that they said I just seemed different when I was up there. I just seemed more at home and more, that was what I was meant to do. It was also so exciting that when you're sat at the front desk of the cellos, you have a lot of time in a lot of repertoire to sit there and listen and take in what's going on around you. And that was a really exciting time to actually take in what the conductor was saying to other people and to sit there and try and process it, to see how things came together. And that was a really exciting thing to then have a go at doing that myself. Of course, there are different challenges. It's such a different thing to do. Of course, when you're sitting there, you can take in everything that's going on around you, but you don't really have to do anything apart from your job very well by having the antenna up, listening to what's going on, and then being part of a whole. The conductor's job is more to help that to come along, to guide the orchestra, to help them to be together, to help them to be together not only in ensemble, but also musically, to have one idea, that you can bring 100 people to go on this one idea. And it doesn't have to be an idea that everybody agrees on. It just has to be an idea that for this performance, everybody's willing to do, and everybody's willing to go down this route and see how it is. So that's I think that's one of the most exciting parts of our job, that we can take a piece in one direction or another, and it's having the respect of the orchestra combined with the authority and combined with good ideas, that you can somehow make the train go forward without crashing or without going too fast over a curve or similar. I've experimented actually with both in the past, with and without score and with and without baton. Let's address the baton first. Batons are for clarity, of course. So I think that the ability to not have to use a baton is sometimes liberating. In chamber music, it's really nice, and you can guide the sound sometimes easier, or you can just mold the sound in front of you. However, with larger forces, you do need a stick. I do prefer to use a baton, because that's just the way we then train, and to have the energy at the end of the stick for the players to follow. So yes, I do prefer using a baton. However, if the forces allow, then it's sometimes nice to not have to use one. As regards the conducting with or without a score, this is a different thing. I think that when I've tried it in the past, it's been very, very liberating again, very freeing, that you can just be with the players, with your eyes constantly, and with the energy there with the players in front of you, not having to be confined by the stand there. However, when I spoke to Andres a lot as well at the orchestra, it was always this view that there's something new to find. And if you don't have photographic memory, which I don't, you can study it as hard as you can and as close as you want to getting it. But unless you can sort out a problem, unless you have that absolute conviction that if something goes wrong with the second bassoon and you can put them back in, this was a realization at which point that I stopped doing it from memory. There's many times where I'll have the score there and I won't look at it for some pages, but I know how many pages I'm turning over because you've studied it very hard. But I would never go out at the moment anyway without a score, because I just don't think it installs confidence in everybody. Because if there is a problem, I think you should have the score there. When it comes to pieces to listen to, it's usually whatever's coming up in about 2 or 3 months' time, just listening around different recordings where possible, just to hear different views and different takes on a piece. Once I start working on a piece with an orchestra, I cannot listen to a recording. So I can listen to a recording up until the moment I start rehearsing it. Then I have to leave the recordings behind, otherwise I go crazy. The other part of that question was favourite pieces of music to conduct. At the moment, I really love Shostakovich and I really love Bruckner. I think Bruckner is often given a bad rep, and it can come across as boring sometimes, and this is the main criticism that comes across, because they're very long symphonies. But I think this is a job of the conductor, that we must from the first bar feel how to get to the end, and it must just be one journey. Like the director of a film, 1917 is one of these examples, a brilliant film in this single shot. I think that's what we have to do with Bruckner. It requires a lot more work from the conductor to actually sit in a room and actually really work hard at how to keep this journey going for 1 hour or sometimes longer to arrive at the end, and so that the audience feel that it's just been one train journey from the beginning to the end without any stops, no stations, no nothing, just a direct train journey just to get to the end. Shostakovich, sometimes again criticisms can be that it's very vertical, but I think he was one of the most human composers. If you listen to all of the symphonies, you really hear from the beginning to the end a history lesson. You can hear the plight of the people, you can hear the community of the people and what they had to go through and how they had to go through it. And when you read up about the symphonies, you don't even have to read up about them, but when you do read up about them and then you listen to the music, you really hear everything that he's aiming to depict and everything that it's supposed to show. And I think this is a history lesson in itself. The best thing about being a conductor, for me, for sure, is the concerts. There's nothing that beats the thrill after a concert and during a concert. Beforehand, you're thinking a lot about what is about to happen, but before, you are the one who's going to be in the driving seat. So it's almost like checking out the race course before you get onto it and actually visualizing the race course. Once you're there, once you're on the box, you're guiding it with such a thrill of every single moment and how you're aiming to get where you want to get and how you want to get there. But the thrill of after a concert with all that amazing music, at the beginning of the career, you do a lot of music and you're doing so many different things. As you go on, you learn which repertoire is closer to you and which repertoire represents you and which repertoire you can do better and which suits you better. And as you start doing more of that kind of stuff and more of the stuff that really means something to you, and you know that you can do well, it becomes even more thrilling and it becomes a real journey. And I think now I'm saying no a lot more to programs and to repertoire because I really know what I can do better for myself and therefore transmit to an orchestra and therefore to an audience as well. The other part of that question was a highlight. There's just too many things. There are too many things. Of course, the job in Parma was my first titled job. And that has been so exciting. The first concert that I did in Parma with Eroica and the Schumann Piano Concerto was one of the most exciting concerts because it was one of my first big gigs abroad. Also, my first concert with the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, which was on 4 days' notice doing Shostakovich 15. And there are a lot of these really exciting things at the beginning that then create relationships for a much longer period of time. And these are really memorable concerts that you'll never forget because they really help your career to arrive from point to point to point and to build these bricks. I actually get asked this question a lot in virtually every interview I've ever done, and it was always a pilot. I always knew that I wanted to be a pilot. When I was at school, every project at school, whether it was something to do with English or art or music or whatever it was always something to do with flying and something to do with being a pilot. And I always tell this story that my best friend at primary school, we were very close, and we used to both have this idea of becoming pilots. I went with my one passion of music and decided to do what I do. And right now he's a pilot, a commercial pilot. So at least one of us made it in that field. Other than that, I'm not sure. I think that's the one thing that I really love to do. In some of my free time, it's a bit of a sad thing, but I love playing on flight simulators and powerful but really good flight simulators. And this is just a hobby that I really love Brahms's First Symphony. I last did it actually a month ago, so these two Brahms ones were programmed quite close together, and I was really excited to see how it would change with doing it with one orchestra in the same country and another orchestra in the same country and seeing how different those two could be in a short space of time. I spent a lot of time with the Brahms symphonies in Parma as we did the cycle, and we also did Brahms symphonies in other occasions as well, not just as part of the cycle. And I really love the symphonies of Brahms, and the First Symphony was such a great pairing in this concert with the Rosenkavalier Suite and the Ravel as well, which is a lighter offering of the program. Sad not to have done it, but hopefully we'll be able to do it again at some point in the future. Let's hope. I hope that these responses answer your questions, and stay safe. And I hope that we'll meet again soon at our incredible Symphony Hall with the amazing CBSO. Can't wait. Thank you.